Hello, I'm Daniela Forte, content producer with Multi-Channel Merchant. I am here today with Jim Davidson, head of research for Bronto Software. We'll be talking today about some of Jim's findings over Black Friday and Cyber Monday weekend. Hi, Jim. How are you doing today?
Joy, how are you?
Good, good. So, Jim, I'm going to start off with my first question today. What surprised you most about retailer strategies with emails on Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and Cyber Monday?
Oh, all three. Well, I mean, I think that's a really great question because they're all blurring together at this point. So I think what really surprised me this year is how uneventful everything was. I mean, there was a lot going on. There were tons of sales, inboxes were slammed, websites were just getting hit left and right. So we still have all the activity there, but I think a lot of the energy that we typically see and just a lot of that anticipation that we all feel working in e-commerce really got mixed around this year. So I think what surprised me is we've seen over the past couple years, the really late Thanksgiving has pushed things around and made retailers react in different ways, but it's also increased the consumer's expectation for finding deals through a longer period of time. You know, we've seen retailers back their sales up to the beginning of November to really ensure they weren't going to get in that crunch in December with that late Thanksgiving. And consumers liked it. I think retailers saw sales go up. So why would they put things back into just a 24-hour period? And that's really shifted the game quite a bit for these major days. And we're seeing that in the numbers. We're seeing that in how sales are really getting divided across channels. So lots of twists and turns this year.
Okay. Is this something that you'll expect to see next year, more of next year?
I think so. We'll continue to see the evolution of Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And, when we look at the data, I think we definitely see a lot of call and response between the consumer's expectation and how they're shopping and what retailers are willing to do to capture that wallet share. So, we're coming off the back of these shortened seasons, which I think made everybody really tense, the shopper and the retailer. I know for me, it made everything a lot tighter. And then when I actually had to shop, things were a lot tighter too. So both of my hats were really feeling the pressure. So when we look at 2016, I think we'll really start to see those lines continue to be blurred, but it'll probably become a bit better defined. And I realize that contradicts itself to be blurred and defined, but this year, I think a lot of retailers were really trying to find their footing. And I saw that in the US and a little bit in the UK too. So, I think we're really trying to redefine what Black Friday means and try to figure out how Thanksgiving is going to establish itself as a shopping event. And then at the end of it, what does it really mean for Cyber Monday?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you find the increase in email helped retailers like on Black Friday and Thanksgiving as well as Cyber Monday? If so, how?
Well, I mean, I think, of course, my answer is send email and make money. I'm definitely not going to encourage people to send fewer, but always send smart. So I think email definitely did help with the conversation. I think we've understood at this point that email reaches folks in their pockets, in their cars, at home, in their beds. It's really wherever folks want to shop. It's going to be there to meet them in their inboxes. And it's the first thing that people do when they wake up. What I think we've seen that's been different this year is how retailers are using email, what times they're targeting their messages, and how they're really anticipating that consumer to shop. So what we've seen, if we go back several years and we think about Black Friday and its origins, it was a store-specific promotion, so driving people into stores. And I'm sure we all remember 3 a.m. doorbusters with the 3 big screen TVs that were like 60% off. And when we look at all those fights going on, that's really where it comes from. And that's not where we are anymore. So what we've seen over the past couple of years is the peak time for Black Friday really moving away from those early morning hours. So we see a burst at midnight, of course, just a lot of folks have those messages triggered to go at midnight. And then what we've seen is really those early morning hours, like 1 o'clock to 4 a.m., have started to go down. And we've seen a little bit of wiggle between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. And retailers have really landed on 7 a.m. So, when we think of Black Friday and those 3 a.m. start calls and all those lines of people lining up, a little bit of that has gone away. And when we look at the sales data for Black Friday, we're seeing online sales really starting to trump some of those store sales. And part of that has to do with a lot of the promotions that folks are sending. But we've seen these times really shift around. And one trend that I saw this year that I haven't seen in previous years is right at noon, there was a bump in traffic. I've got a stat over here, but 6% of the day's volume came through between 12 and 1. And so we're seeing not only just this later start, but more sustained traffic in the inbox. So really making sure you're hitting those subscribers at all those moments throughout the day. So for Black Friday, later start, midday, and then a sustained amount of traffic from around 3 to 6 p.m. So I don't have the stat right there on my little card, but really fewer peaks and valleys in the afternoon, more of that sustained message. And on Thanksgiving, what was interesting too is we saw that shift away from early morning, and retailers really trying to, not being shy about targeting that person on Thanksgiving. You know, I feel like Thanksgiving has retained a little bit more of that morality play of our stores are closed or we love our employees. And so there's been a little more push and pull as opposed to 40% off everything. But what we see in the data for Thanksgiving is that people are really trying to target that person before and after their Thanksgiving meal. They know that consumers now expect to shop on those days, whether that's good or bad for your personal values or good or bad for your wallet or good or bad for your sales numbers. It's really a fact of where we are. So we're starting to see that traffic independent of just an early Black Friday sale, but really announcing Thanksgiving sales that are unique to that day or reminders from sales that have been going on that week, driving people in store, maybe trying to recoup some of those store sales that are getting cannibalized on Black Friday. Just a thought there too. But we've really seen that come a bit more into its own. And then with Cyber Monday too, some similar trends, you know, a little bit later start in the day. I did see more retailers sending more than one message. That's true for all 3 days. There were fewer retailers relying just on one email for the day. So for Cyber Monday, 62% of retailers sent more than one email. 18% sent 3 or more during the day. And then the other one was 2% sent 5 or more messages on Cyber Monday. And that sounds like a lot, but the good story here is I saw a lot of retailers who were sending multiple messages in a very smart way. So the volume wasn't just getting turned up. More messages weren't hitting the inbox. Retailers are really being calculated about how they were sending more messages to their shoppers. So really, that's a lot of words there for you. But I think it's helping. I think that we're taking a more calculated approach. I think that what we're promoting and what those sales are and how consumers are shopping, that's the blurry part.
What are some methods you're seeing, as a follow-up question to your answer here, what are the methods you're seeing retailers doing when they're sending multiple emails? Like how targeted are you seeing them get? When, you know, say if one retailer is sending 3 emails, do you see it very targeted to a specific time or a product? What are you seeing there?
So I'm seeing a few things. I'm seeing a bit more of a broader reach as opposed to the narrow and targeted reach, and a little bit more of retailers building a story arc for the day as opposed to just hitting the inbox multiple times with tons of products. One of the strategies I saw throughout the whole holiday weekend was, typically we'll see channel distinction in the promotions. So on Black Friday, you would see 40% off everything in our store, and then a different offer for the website that's maybe a little less appealing. And that's to retain some of those store sales and to stay true to that definition of Black Friday. I saw a lot of retailers moving away from that, where one offer was consistent across channels, giving the consumer that same experience and the same savings wherever they choose to shop, and a lot of connectors between that experience. So in-store pickup and different ways to receive your package or to shop online and pick up in store. When it comes to the messages themselves, I really, one of my pet peeves is the kitchen sink email, where I know people get pressures from their merchandisers. I know we all have certain products that we want to push, but when you see an email that, on a mobile phone is going to take you 50 swipes to get to the bottom, people are not always going to shop those messages. And I saw fewer retailers doing that and more retailers really focusing on what the savings are, and with those broad reaching site-wide and store-wide sales, really making sure that message is front and center, and then getting folks to the site and really running the experience from there as opposed to running it directly in the inbox with products that are targeted specific to you and your preferences and your behavior. That's very effective. Don't get me wrong. I'm not discouraging folks from doing that, But when it comes to these major shopping days, I saw a little bit less clutter in the inbox and a little more focus on what that promotion is.
Why do you think 7 a.m., the 7 to 8 a.m. Was the hour of choice for most retailers, and why?
Well, I think we're getting away from that whole doorbuster mentality. Consumers have figured out that shelves are going to be stocked. They're not going to have to rush to get those particular products. We have seen a few retailers who've had some site issues. So the traffic is there. It definitely gets busier and gets a bit more competitive. But those savings are going to be available. In a lot of cases, those sales were available November 1st. You didn't even have to wait until Thanksgiving to start to be able to get those products. So, I think that 7 a.m. hour has become a realistic hour when folks are going to start checking their email, as opposed to trying to get that savvy shopper who's up at 3 a.m. to stock down that limited inventory. Now, some of that still exists, don't get me wrong, but I think that realistic view and folks moving between 6 and 8 to really try to find that magic hour. 7 a.m. seems to be what's been most effective for folks, and that also helps your message from getting buried. So if you're not sending something that is limited inventory or only available for those morning hours, hitting the inbox at 7 when a lot of that traffic is coming through, folks might be getting in their cars to go to a store that is open early, not crazy early, but early. So that timing seems to be right. So we definitely seem to be moving away from the 24-hour sale and from those early morning sales.
What are the best examples seen by retailers as we start to head into Cyber Week? I mean, we're in the midst of Cyber Week.
Right. So I think the retailer, the most common thing that I'm seeing is folks just extending their sales. And this is always the period where between Sunday and Tuesday, I think things get to be a little confusing because some folks are extending their Thanksgiving weekend sales. Believe it or not, I still see Thanksgiving hitting the inbox. A lot of retailers have saturated the Black Friday concept so much, so they just like to breathe some fresh air into their messaging. We see Cyber Monday sales extended. We see Cyber Week sales kicking off. We see combinations of all three. So I think that's primarily what we're going to see in the inbox. As far as what folks are promoting, I think we're really going to see a continuation of the site-wide and store-wide sales, or the availability of one offer and one view of the inventory from the consumer's perspective across all channels. And to me, that takes a little bit of the fun out of it, because we're not seeing a whole lot of difference in what folks are doing. It's one sale in multiple channels, and that's a great goal for retailers to get to, because it helps the consumer to shop. But I think it's made things a little bit less, there's been less anticipation about finding that good deal, because they're so broad reaching and they've been going on for so long. So it'll be interesting when we get to the later part of the week to see how folks are dealing with that, because if you've been messaging these offers now for 7 to 10 days, is that really going to be effective?
And were there any other peak times you saw through your findings over the weekend, besides 7 a.m. as we mentioned before, as we talked about before?
Definitely. I mean, I think just looking at my data, some of the biggest shifts that I saw this year are really where things came into focus for retailers was in that 3 to 6 p.m. period, where I've always seen traffic increase quite a bit, but it's increased and it's sustained. And I think that retailers are really starting to figure out that that's a key moment when folks may be heading out to stores or ready to shop online after being in stores and trying to find those items in stock. And it seems like that period has really been key. And so it'll be interesting too, now that folks are back at work and kids are back at school, to see if we start seeing those hours shift out a little bit later in the day, or if that afternoon period still seems to be a really good time for retailers.
Okay. What do you think these results that you gathered tell us for 2016? I mean, what can retailers expect, and how should they begin to prepare?
So, I mean, we're all chasing the consumer at this point. We've lost control in the dialogue. We're not showing anyone how to shop. We're not telling them when to wake up. They are really in control. So I think what we'll see going into next year, we'll see that increased expectation from the consumer to be able to shop when they want to, where they want to, and then receive those items as quickly or as nearby as they want to. Maybe we'll even have the Amazon Prime drone by then. Who knows? The world is a never-changing place, right, Daniela?
Yeah.
So, I think we'll see a lot of retailers looking back at their 2015 holiday season, trying to figure out what were those moments when my consumer was ready to shop and where did they want to shop. What I think will be different and a challenge for retailers going into 2016, into the 2016 holiday season, is how can you sustain that momentum for such an extended period of time? When we started doing our planning in June or July, we always focus on these major days. So we had Black Friday and Cyber Monday, a couple days in between to worry about. Thanksgiving started to be something that we focused on, and now it's really become November and earlier. I mean, you start your holiday marketing before, but this expectation and this willingness to shop early is here. And so I think that's going to be one of the biggest lessons learned by retailers this year, and one of the top priorities for planning for a holiday 2016.
And my last question is, and this has occurred to me over the holiday weekend as I was shopping online and in store,
okay,
was whether there will, as we move forward in the years to come, will there be a designated day anymore like a Black Friday? I personally saw, my inbox flooding days before Black Friday with pre-Black Friday deals. I'm still seeing deals coming through. Some of the sales that were going on during the weekend still are in existence. So what do you think there will be a designated day in the years to come?
Yeah, I think these shopping events are here to stay. I think they're going to become a lot less eventful. It's not really appointment shopping anymore. You're not having to wait to get the deals. Like you said, you were getting those messages so early in the month. And so next year, when you start shopping, you're going to expect them, right? I mean, this year you got them, you were caught off guard a little bit. Next year, November 1st, it's time to start shopping. And you're probably going to be more willing because the deal you're getting November 1st is probably going to be as good as the one that you get right around Thanksgiving. I think we'll still see some retailers, like Target this year had 15% off their entire site. We'll still see retailers making special plays on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. A lot of retailers still had 24-hour sales or additional discounts that were available on Black Friday, or certain products that were only on sale on Black Friday. So we'll still see some of that action going on. But I think it will be a little different every year. I think we've extended it out and consumers like it, and the sales back up the benefit of doing that. So it's really, how can you sustain that momentum for the month? And then how do you make those days still special?
Okay, well, Jim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we look forward to talking to you again.
Great. Have a wonderful day.
You too.